1, go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of Jawin with Jack, where I get to have an scintillating conversation with my good friend RDubs. RDubs, please introduce yourself to the people.
What's up, man? I'm just RDubs. Nothing special. I like to game.
But terribly flamboyant.
That very flamboyant. You can tell behind me here. Unfortunately, I didn't resize the image, so you can't tell how flamboyant it is. But
I think a little bit of mystery adds to it. So,
absolutely.
The parts we can't see tell us as much as what we can see.
If anyone can figure out what it's from and why it's Mr. Flamboyant, then I would love to hear from them, because I don't think anybody that is going to watch this will ever know where it came from. It's not a gaming thing.
That's a good challenge. Got the chat open there. Okay, we're seeing that. All right. So mostly the show is just about having a great conversation. And the place I always like to start is, how did you get into games, man? How did you get started in this wonderful hobby?
We were chatting, but I played a little bit as a kid, when I had downtime, when I was doing really stupid crap. And then I think like around 2000, I got a buddy that was a DM in Folsom. And he, I lived in the same apartment complex as him once he got out. And we were playing, I ran some Counter-Strike servers at that time, and we were playing a lot of Counter-Strike. And he ran some games for me. And so I played then, and I just played a little bit going through. But really, when I got sober, man, I did two things. I started painting miniatures a lot, and started playing games a lot with my kids, and just like solo stuff. Like, instead of like trying to go get high or drunk, I would sit there and I would just either solo game or like paint a miniature for freaking 8 hours. I had to fill time.
Well, no doctor, but that's like a healthy alternative.
It was healthier than what I was doing, dude. Real close to not being alive anymore, man. Like real close, doing stupid crap. And once the wife said, you're out, you're never coming back, it was time to wake up and fix it. So
that would do it for me too, for sure.
It was instant. Everything was done like that day. So never again did I do any of it. So what's up, man?
And I respect your willpower, because I'm a long-term smoker who's finally quit, and cold turkey was never an option for me. I try.
Dude, it's the one thing I've got going for me is I can just stop shit. Sometimes. Sometimes.
Well, we'll leave the parts that you can't stop now a mystery.
That's right.
So now, one of the reasons I know you mostly from X and from YouTube, right, and one of the things that drew me to your channel is you're also an avid solo player like me. How did you get started in the solo aspect of the hobby?
Well, after playing with the bros and in Living Earth and all this stuff, I realized that everyone kept telling me I'm like the best person to play with. And so I decided that I would start playing with myself. And I mean, if I'm going to game, I'm going to game with the best. So solo gaming made a lot of sense for me.
I had almost exactly the same conversation with myself when it came to solo gaming.
That's right.
That's what exactly the tweet is.
I really like Warhammer. We were, Warhammer 95. One of the first. What's up, dude? I had a great time playing with you, man. Just got to play with him on Saturday. It was awesome.
He was in Gobstein, and he was awesome.
He did a good job. That was fun. One of the first things I played with my kids after I got sober was it was Blackstone Fortress by Games Workshop, which is a sci-fi dungeon crawler in the 40,000 universe, right? And I quickly, I had already read BX. I'd been through that stuff as a kid, like, looking at it, and the connections were real quick. It's like, okay, I've had a lot of fun with BX when I was younger. BX is the same exact procedures for the most part that Warhammer Quest is. They aren't very different. They have different intents, right? But they are the same thing. Like the dungeon loop, the hex crawl loop, all that is literally in the dungeon crawler board games. And then I that was a lot of fun playing with the kids. And then those games you can play by yourself. So when they couldn't play, I'd move the campaign along for them. And it took us about a year to finish that game, but I'd move it along. And that's kind of how I got into it, was after gaming with my kids and just solo gaming that to move it along, basically. And then realized that shit is like yoga, and it's meditative, like to just throw dice and to play a solo session. like if my head's crazy or if I need to kill some time, like if I throw dice for a little bit, it's definitely something that's soothing, right? So yeah, that's why.
Quick shout out to my boy Deathstalker 5, runs the Random Encounter Show on YouTube. Glad to see you here, brother. And yeah, that I very much feel the same way. Like, given the option, I will just sit down and I'd rather sit and solo play rather than like play a video game or something like that. I find it a lot more creatively fulfilling.
Oh, for sure. I haven't been able to play a video game since I got sober, dude. Like they just don't. I'll try and I just can't get through them.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same one. Many new games, even like Baldur's Gate 3, I got bored with it very quickly and never finished it and stuff like that. So
I did start a session and start recording a Conan run through that was killing all the non-humans for Baldur's Gate 3. I like went through and just started killing everyone that wasn't human. I decided it was a little bit too rough to publish, but it was fun for like an hour.
I can dig that. Yeah, when it comes to computer games, I still prefer to fire up Daggerfall when I'm in the mood.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like Unreal World, like some of that stuff, like Project Zomboid, some of the like roguelike stuff. Because I played Rogue as a freaking kid in the 80s with my uncles. You know what I mean? Like they were
me too. I first encountered it on the old Trash 80 from Radio Shack, you know?
Yep. No, for sure. No, solo gaming is cool. There is some really cool, like you were mentioning Kalarath from Castle Grief, right?
Yes.
Purple Druid is, and so Wargame Culture on X is doing a series right now of his solo session because with this game that he's designing, he's going through that. But once you grab an understanding of like OD&D and then see some of these things that have been written, like you realize how easy it is to sit down with just some dice and index card and maybe a table or something and just have a session. Like, and so when someone adds on something cool, like going and trying to join a freaking Legion in Kalarath and has that Conan vibe, it becomes something that's quite a lot of fun and something worth supporting, you know, because people put their art and stuff into it. But no, it's great, dude.
I get it. And it reminds me of one of the broisms I heard early on, which was there is a setting that arises out of the random tables in there. There is a very opinionated setting. And that was one of the things that really drew me to Kalarath, the first couple iterations of playing and dying horribly and all the variations of it. But this is a really neat world that comes out of this. A lot of cool stuff. Conan meets the Lost World. Yeah.
And things like Free League's freaking Twilight 2000 and the Walking Dead Universe RPG, like those, the reason they work so well solo is because they have really tight, structured ways to generate rumors and ways to generate challenges and issues. Like the freaking Walking Dead one, it's all tied. It's always like the good games are tied to either a hex crawl, like a really cool dungeon crawl, or like a domain game, or a base. I will say a domain game, but I mean a base building game. And The Walking Dead does all of that except the dungeon crawl really well. So if you like modern and all that, and you want something that's super freaking deadly, and I think that's one of the things that what I've found in solo gaming is I want it to be as dangerous and deadly as possible, that most of the time I'm going to die pretty quickly. And that's what I like about a solo game too, is that it's going to be over quickly. And I don't know, a lot of people like they journal or do whatever when they're solo gaming. That's not really what I'm looking for. I'm just looking to kind of experience that story and log it and then throw it into something and have a freaking story written that I can share with the kids, or throw in freaking AI and do voice for it and throw something that I can listen to or whatever the kids can listen to or something like that. And to me, it's about that. Like that.
Prep for tonight's show, I've been going through several of your AI selections over on the YouTube channel.
They're ridiculous, dude.
They are. Great stuff.
Ridiculous. I have a lot of fun with Chainmail as a solo game. Chainmail makes a freaking phenomenal solo game. And I think Alchemic Breakers, like Lords, is really a good service to people that haven't, like we were talking, man, like that haven't played competitive like versus game in Chainmail, that haven't had that opportunity. I think the Old Lords will explain that a little bit better than you can grasp at Chainmail. But the reason I say that is that the simultaneous movement system and order system in Chainmail is how you should, in my opinion, solo any combat. And the way it was Rodney from Dragons Beyond, who wrote that game, that really pointed out, like, and made me kind of pay attention. I was doing it slightly, but he's like, write your order for your side, walk away for 15, 20 minutes, look at it and write the order for the side, and then implement those both at the same time, which if you've run games of email for people and simultaneous, you learn how to do that. It is a cognitive load sometimes, but what you get is an experience when you're solo gaming that is a little bit more organic than if you're just kind of throwing a theater. And I don't mean necessarily with figures, although I do play when I solo, but it is granular and more organic than kind of saying, okay, I'm doing this, doing that, and then running through that right there. You can actually get into something that's fun. Like the thread I have on Twitter right now where I'm testing, that's perfect. This Pumpkin guy is going to he's going to distract the shit out of my ADHD. I can already tell you that right now. I'm going to lose track of everything. The thread I have right now for Men Are the Mountain.
145 shows up.
Y'all really? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know if the other guys will make the stream. Punking's been showing up for me though, but gotcha. Yeah, he's going to nail us hard.
Yeah, no, the simultaneous thing and the chainmail thing makes for a really fun dungeon crawl because of a few things, like that simultaneous thing, and then the D6 resolution. It strips out the hit roll, it strips out the HP, which I think is just a drain on soloing. I think that it is kind of the bane of soloing.
Yeah, I can see that. I prefer a rules light approach with my solo play because less paperwork overall, and for that reason I shy away from more rules heavy systems when I'm going to run solo. So like I can really dig what you're putting down, that I would be drawn more to something like Chainmail where it's it's hit or miss. They're dead or they're not dead. There's no track and wound levels on it.
I've got a challenge for you. Grab Lathan's Gold, which is a solo module for basic for Molde, and it is a mass combat module because what they did is they wrote a diceless combat system. But play it with Chainmail resolution. Play it with the mass combat resolution and the D6 resolution from Chainmail, and go through that. You will have a freaking blast, dude. You're sailing through the freaking Sea of Dread. You're exploring islands and you're fighting groups of 20 or 30 freaking mermen on a boat, right? And then various other things. And so like that, there's all these old modules that are like they have these unique little elements to them, where if you really just rip out and go take the Chainmail resolution system, the mass combat resolution, and play it with that, becomes something completely different that is a freaking blast, dude. Amazing way to do it. I really recommend, and even Hellmarch, man, if you have a solution and you understand Hellmarch, if you have a D6 solution like that, you could do that with Hellmarch in these old modules. And it is a ton of fun. It's tons of fun because you don't need the freaking, like I was talking about using AI or machine learning and freaking stuff to like run decision making for solo sessions. You don't need that when they're pre-written for solo like that. So it really becomes a fun situation where you've got a built-in dungeon master or referee or whatever, Nice.
Now I've found that with published solo stuff, there are a lot of ways they're a choose your own adventure sort of experience. Yep. How do you feel that those hold up with replayability?
No, I mean, like for like the Lathan's Gold, eventually you're going to memorize your way to get over to freaking a certain spot in a certain hex, right? Like you're just going to know how to get to a certain hex. I think it's good for 1 or 2 run-throughs solo. And if you honestly, it runs as a really cool co-op because I've co-opted it with my kid. So if you're ever looking for something to do with someone else, run it solo once and then run it co-op with somebody, and you'll have a freaking blast, and then just let them make the decisions. Usually I end up soloing most stuff I run for my kids anyways, because that way I know what's going on.
You kind of got to guide them along. You give it direction.
Yep. I'm about to run Gods of the Forbidden North for some people coming to town, and I've been soloing that for a bit now, which it's a solid module for solo play.
I hear talk about it like it's legendary. So
that's good, dude. Yeah, my favorite's Halls of Arden Vul. Like when it comes to modules, the Halls of Arden Vul is freaking phenomenal. It's written for 1E. But I'm into Egypt anyways. So, but yeah, Gods of the Forbidden North. I haven't played with the classes and like the races there, or I would say the cultures there. But like going through that story, going through that setting, they're gonna make fun of me for saying story, dude, because I just said story. But it's worth it. I think it's a good one to support because it is a lot of fun. It is a good
story. Gay.
Yeah, right. That's Crom and Polly.
So you always approach this more from the attitude of a war gamer, like we were discussing this earlier, and you mentioned that you're really in it for the tactical and strategic experience.
Yeah, that's why I like the kind of solo stuff I like, because I want the resource management, I want the tactical decision, or if it's a larger game, I want the strategic layer there as well. Even in like a Stein, like Saturday was an amazing Stein. We're not going to talk about it because we're going to talk about it on Moose's on Wednesday. But I did see some stuff where there's a definite draw or like a line in the sand, not in the sand, but some things need to be worked on when it comes to people that are focused more on goal versus narrative or narrative versus goal. And I think there's solutions to that like certain people have figured out in Living Earth. And I think that those will be very useful. I think that stream will be very useful, but I absolutely would prefer to approach it as a war gamer, and I do naturally.
And
it's
just
like
to clarify, that's happening Wednesday night?
Wednesday night
on Dunder Moose's stream.
I don't know what time.
Dunder Moose's channel on YouTube. He's going to have an after action, a session report for the Stein that just happened over the last weekend. And
that was amazing. I think that one's really, really, if the conversation goes the right way, and I'm going to say it right now, if everyone can shut the F up and not tell a story about the game itself, because it was rad. We all want to talk about what happened. I think if people think about the problems and think about the solutions for those problems, that stream could be freaking amazing. Like there's concepts in there that I think that can come out that will enhance what's going on with Discord style play for Steins and stuff, because we talked about it. You were talking about that you ran one for St. Jude. Basically, you were doing donations for St. Jude's, and you ran something, right? What'd you run?
What I ran system-wise, it was a Shadow Dark basis, so I could use Hell March for the mass combat portions of it. And there was very little need for the system throughout most of it, because the way I ran it was processing turns from the 8 players every day, and I gave each of them 3 actions, tell me the 3 things you want to accomplish. And that was so much more work than I anticipated. I figured it'll be 3 things. I've run plenty of games, no problem. It was a lot of work, a lot to juggle, and a lot of things came up that I was just, there's no system for this. Okay, he's putting double the goblins on mining for iron today. Exactly how do I quantify that? You have an extra day's worth of iron then, or what? I found that running that I needed much more in the nature of a domain system than even a mass combat one. Although,
for sure, that's 100%. It sounds a little bit like the Mighty Earth Empires and then Middle Earth Empires that we were running over in Living Earth, which is basically based on Mighty Empires from Games Workshop, which is essentially, it was their internal campaign management system for their fantasy battles back in like the 80s and 90s. And so it is a domain loop that's very abstracted. What's up, Cyrus? And so I thought it would be very easy and light to run. And I think Polyphamous can back me up on this, that even with abstract point-based battle resolution, so like you can take hit dice, roll a single 2d6, and based on the hit dice of the forces, you have an outcome and then a table of what can happen after that, right? And then there's a scouting loop or whatever. And it does six months of campaign, like campaigning, and then it does a 6-month thing of winter and like spells and things. But I was running it for 5 people, and I was trying to run 1 month a day or 1 month every 2 days. But what ended up being, even with that much of a light system, there is so much going on, especially when you think about the combat system, because I also allowed chainmail battles. So when 3 chainmail battles come up in a week, and you're doing that like on a VTT or play by post with chainmail, you're sending images to people and going back and forth. There's a huge workload on it, to be really honest. So those play by post can become quite a bit. And I think Paul tried to run it for like 8 or 9 people, and I don't even think that I did better than you, bro. I mean, I had less people, but at least I ran it for 2 years. He ran it for I think he made it through 6 months, and then I think he killed it on month 7 or 8, the first or second month of the second campaign year, right? And so a really, really good domain system, if you're going to do it again, make it really light, dude. Especially if you're running like a 3-week game like that, I would say try to abstract out all the mass combat. Like just abstract that completely out.
In practice, I ended up using the War Machine from the Rule Cyclopedia for resolving the combats. Because again, I kind of was trying to guide things into culminating in something I could use Hell March for. But in practice, they ran into, it's a Tuesday night. The players can't get together to resolve this battle and stuff like that. And so I just said, all right, I'm going to default to the War Machine because that's just math and a single die roll. I can knock those out pretty easily.
Yeah.
Because, again, like
I still want to make a claim. I think, what's that? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying
I missed it.
If you try to use Hell March or something for 2 different players, I felt like I was interfering too much because there's a lot of tactical decisions to be made once you're moving figures around on a table.
Yep. No, yeah, and I think like at one point during the Mighty Empire game that I was running 3 chainmail battles at one time, and that was freaking insane, dude. And I got to give a shout out to Raptor, because he was in 2 chainmail battles at the same time. And no, that was a lot, dude. That was quite a bit. And I think I can remember 2 days, like right there, where I was doing some work at the time, but I spent way too much time running those 2 freaking battles, dude. But yeah, I think if you do it again, I love the idea that you did it for St. Jude, dude. That's freaking great. And
thank you. Yeah, it came from someone else's suggestion, but I was happy to run with it. And we did good. We raised about $3,000, which I think for 8 guys with very little social media impact, we did
perfect. No, just anytime you give something like that, dude, I don't care if it's $100, man, it's still it's much needed, man. But I would definitely, go to the lightest resolution system. It's the same thing I told Harmony when she was going to do the 4 times thing she's doing that I see as the same thing as Mighty Empires. Abstract combat resolution for players that aren't going to bitch. And I'm sorry, but like there are players that will whine if their army is resolved with a die roll. Like, I mean, Raptor was lucky in that campaign, man. Like he lost a couple times, and then there's a roll to see if that PC, do they live or do they escape? And that dude, every time he escaped, but like literally the 2d6 would wipe out the PC and the army leader. And so everyone was running like 3 or 4 PCs with their banners with their points, right? And their armies. But like we were running it, like players were good enough to be like, if the dice fall this way and you tell me my PC got beheaded, my PC got beheaded. And I think that's a really big point to any game, not only, and this goes back to solo in my opinion, if when you're playing with other people, you're going to get butthurt about things going wrong for your PC or your domain or whatever that is, then you don't have any business playing solo because you're gonna fudge when it comes to a solo game, and that's just not fun. It's just how you do everything is how you do anything, right? And so I think that there's really, that's why I really enjoy Living Earth and the club we have right now, is because everyone is a solid person that is will take their licks and not complain about it. They're all great people. You said you're going to get to play this freaking game in like a month or something like that.
Yeah.
I lost you.
In
Sorry, my
August,
connection's
yeah.
being a little
Pardon
funky
me.
right now. So
That's okay. I'm sure it's the connection.
yeah, like everyone, they all play super solid. And honestly, they're all freaking DMs. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I apologize. All of them. I'm going to kill my video and see if it helps. I can't.
Okay.
You got me? I can hear you.
Go.
Can you hear me
Gotcha.
now?
Still hear you.
Right on.
Yeah, I hear you just
everyone
fine.
in those people are a solid DM, and
so everybody in that club is solid.
And playing
I
with
think
people.
what you're touching on is something. PvP is one of those things that's fallen by the wayside, definitely in the arc of conventional play. And I feel like PvP is something, though, the reason it fell by the wayside is because people were very prone to get butthurt over that stuff. Like I remember friendships. I've had friendships end over PvP and campaigns and because of PvP moments. And that, I think, underscores the point that you've talked about having the club mentality of it's a close-knit group of guys, good friends who know how to work with one another and know how to take it with some degree of sportsmanship.
100%. Absolutely. You said you're playing like the mothership stuff you guys are doing right now with Scudder for Mike. Are you guys playing against? Are you conflicted with each other? Or are you playing together? Like, what's going on with that game, man?
So in that game, it's you are very much a every man for himself kind of mentality. And he designed things in certain ways. So like when we started, he said, pick one character that you like more than everybody else, the person you're favorable towards, and tell me why. And also pick one person you can't stand and tell me why. So he gave us something to sort of play off with on one another. He also gave each of us secret goals behind the scenes, which we were trying to not just complete the mission, the scenario that's being presented for the adventure, but we each had our own little personal goals that we were trying to fulfill and stuff like that. So there were definitely some steaming kind of elements in it.
I think that's the right way to do, honestly, any session is the private player goals. Crom killed it with.
Lost you. While we're waiting for you to come back, I'm going to highlight this one. Also, don't let someone decide to play a merchant prince when the game really should be a domain play thing that would have helped streamline the convergence and conflict and prevent you from trying to worry about markets. Valid. You definitely added something to the game that we.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'll be right there. I'm reconnecting.
Sorry, glad to have you here. No worries. Take your time, man. Lawrence, glad to have you here, man. Thanks for coming by.
There's only 3 connections.
Every resolution is a combat resolution if your party is crazy enough.
That's ahead. The truth, man. That's the truth, though. You can play multiple characters. Yeah, I can tell on X. So did you catch what I was saying about the stuff that Mike was doing with the goals? Oh, fuck, dude.
Not exactly. You broke up during that part, but I caught the gist that you were saying. It's definitely good. Like adding personal character goals is going to enhance any game, no matter what game you're playing. You should have that. If you can't come up with them yourself, you should definitely have your DM give you something. In the Gobstein game, I was playing the Halfling Coffee Prince. Everyone else was
the moose is always going to move when step.
I hear you, man. And no worries. We'll just get it through it the best we can. In the Gobstein game, I was playing the Halfling Coffee Prince. Everyone else were kings. I was like, what do I do with these points? I don't need armies, just caravan guards. Well, we figured out what to do with that. I don't tell my players how or what I use for my resolution. Oh, so that is something I do from time to time. I run games occasionally system blind. I actually have an ongoing Marvel Superheroes campaign, the old rules from '84. But the players in that game don't know the system and actually have never seen their character sheets. It's definitely an interesting way to play. Add to the stream. He's coming back.
Yeah, it would help if I'm switching the connection on the right computer. There
we go. Hey, you sound crystal clear now.
Yeah, I've been switching connections on the other freaking box right here, dude. Not the one we're streaming from.
Can you hear knocking? I cannot hear knocking. At least not now, but that was a while ago.
Yeah, it was fun playing with dude. I had a good time with Marnius.
Yeah, he's great. He of course, like I was saying, he played the halfling traitor, the evil halfling prince of darkness in Gobstein. So he got to have the ultimate reversal towards the end of the game, and we played together playtesting Cults as a Hawk for Black Lodge Games. That was a ton of fun, man. I don't know if you're into Mithras or RuneQuest or any sort of D100 system, but that's definitely going to be a worthwhile product to check out. If you like Shucked Oyster at all, you are not going to be disappointed by Cults.
Dude, they make a good product. I have only read a little bit of the Shucked Oyster. I don't know a lot about it, but I was impressed with what they did with that thing. You could have fun with that. I can see it. I've not played it though.
Absolutely.
So what are you soloing right now, dude?
Mostly I have Kalarath on the brain recently since I got that. Also solo wise, I've been jumping around. I have actually embarrassed myself a little bit. I have been soloing some D&D 24 just to see what it's like. I skipped 5th edition and I got the books and I mean, it's serviceable. It seems to work. I've barely scratched the surface of it, but I'm in the same boat as I was with 5th edition. I like it. It seems all right, but I don't love it. Back around 4th edition, I switched over to Castles and Crusades, and that's been my main jam ever since. Also on solo, probably my longest running campaign, which has been going on for years, is out of the Rules Cyclopedia. And actually, I play D&D Immortals solo, if you've ever seen those rules.
You cut out just for a second. What was the rule set you just said?
D&D Immortals, the box set 5 set.
Yeah, no, I have not played them actually, but I do know what they are. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what's going on in Kalarath, man?
In Kalarath, my current character, he's poking around about level 3. He is a mystic, and he's a guy that when I started him, you know how you roll the on the little quest chart to see what got you started on the life of adventure. I rolled a 12 on the chart in the main book, which is the somewhere out in the wilderness is the 10,000 coin fortune that you need to pay for the army to take your rightful throne back. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm a wizard who's actually the rightful king of some far off land. And I'm tolling around at mostly just doing the hex crawl thing, exploring all over the place. And there was a spot where I got a random treasure. And on that treasure chart, I rolled the rune sword, which is pretty much the most powerful item in the base rolls. It's a sword that gives you advantage and everything. So here I am playing this wimpy wizard, and you have this priceless sword end up in your lap. He has since been on learning swordsmanship, and setting about trying to raise the army that he's got. So I've actually been debating with this character. It's like, well, I got the sword that's technically worth the 10,000 gold. Is that the actual treasure I was looking for that's going to raise my army? At the same time, I'm really loath to give up such a good sword. It's like the best sword in the game. So I'm actually rebuilding and developing the character as a swordsman now.
Right on. So it's like that's a barbarian Prince Hook right there.
And he does the Path of Illumination, so his magic is about getting re-rolls and extra fate points and stuff like that.
So do you log and do you journal? This is my thing. Like I see a lot of people solo. I see people like they're journaling. They're playing a journaling game, and like I wonder like where do you lie on that? Like I'm looking for the procedures and everything, and then the after output of the log, right, of each procedure. But are you journaling while you do it? Like how do you solo, bro?
So I would say my approach is mixed. I have had times where my solo sessions, blossom into a full-blown writing exercise. I do write as a hobby. You may be shocked to know, I have literally made hundreds of dollars as an independent author. So
right on, man.
It's out there. But I find that much like you, when I'm there to play, I want to play and I want to get through as much of the game as it is. So with Calarath, I've developed a shorthand. It's actually very similar for most games that I play. I've developed a shorthand and I take notes and each turn, and I have it like to what day, here's the weather, here's the stuff like that. Most people do something similar. If you poke around on Substack for some of the solo players that are logging their stuff there. And I'm a pen and paper guy. I just haven't forced myself to sit down and transcribe them into any sort of blog or anything like that. And I've been toying with that idea too, is there another night where I want to do a live stream of a solo player, record them, and so that way people can see what I do. But like for Calarath in particular, I got myself a good old just composition book that I am writing I got my character sheet in there, and I keep notes of it, like I said, in a basic shorthand that somebody who doesn't know the way I'm thinking and what I'm doing that would not be able to understand these, but I can go back and look at my notes and tell you turn by turn what happened in any given session. And then on top of that, my wife is also, she made me a little book of I put my Castle Grief sticker on the front of it, but she actually handmade me a little book of graph paper so I could put my maps inside of it and do my hex maps all inside of my own little notebook that goes with it.
It makes it portable, man, when you play that way. It's like we were talking about. If you understand a system like that, like if you understand AD&D and the a few loops in there, and you understand the charts from like Chainmail, kind of ties into what the question was about skilled or level-based systems. But if you understand those, just a piece of paper and a small table, and that like literally can make a super solid solo session if you understand how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. In a similar way, I use the Mythic GM emulator, and the way it's structured, you can run a whole game using just that. It can even serve as the resolution system. So again,
yeah, I keep the table. I keep the Mythic the GME, the table, like with my AD&D books, just like I keep it with, like I keep a bunch of Judges Guild stuff with it, because the Judges Guild products with AD&D and a few things like really do like make for like a super solid game. The guesses and quests from Judges Guild is phenomenal. The Prosperous Prospecting and the Campaign Hexagon system from Judges Guild is freaking phenomenal. Especially if you're freaking autistic, man. Like it'll allow you to build like 0.2 mile subhexes. And like it's basically the dungeon turn inside of a hex crawl. And I think actually Varg, I know he's not everybody's favorite, but he has Recon Quest and Advanced Recon Quest, which is, from what I've seen, is very similar to the way he does that, and very soloable as well. But yeah, I think that the hex crawl and more so than the dungeon crawl makes for a better solo game. I really do. And the domain game.
Agreed. I have found that solo dungeon crawls are a little lackluster, but the hex crawling is pretty action packed, and particularly when you're leaning on the original first edition or BX sort of random encounter tables and wilderness encounters. It is very easy to end up in a terribly hairy situation, which just increases the excitement.
Absolutely. Moritz, is that what his name is? He has a good question about level or skill-based systems. Like, what do you prefer? Like, especially when you're playing solo, like, what do you prefer? Like, do you want to level the character and build it, or do you just want to go, like, explore hexes?
That's a good question. I think by default, most of my solo play falls into the class and level category. It's what I've been playing the longest since I was a little kid. So that's just how my brain works. I fall into it naturally. That being said, I've done significant solo stretches of Savage Worlds, if you're familiar with that system. Yeah. And that works really well solo. It's rules light, but still gives you a very tactical feel. And it does away with, it's completely skill based. You know, it's not a percentile system. It's a dice stats as dice system, but I think it's really cool. I've had a lot of fun with that one.
Stats as dice is fun. I like the Free League stuff. When it comes to that question for me, I really like the supplement I'm writing for Chainmail. Like, it's just for me, the men are the monsters type of thing. They're very procedure heavy. The loop is essentially make it to the town, find a job, make it to the job. Well, do the research, make it to the job, but it's all dice based. So it's all D6 based, right? So right. If you're going out to a hex and you're trying to find some ingredient for a potion so that you can actually hit the freaking wraith, you're rolling a D6 and you're trying to look for a clue or look for the herb or whatever you're looking for. And that single die roll will dictate whether you're delayed or you have an encounter and find something, or just have an encounter. Like, I really like the no skill, no level type of thing of just a figure, just a man going out and trying to make it through the whole process. And so I really guess in that case, I would prefer a skill-based system, but I don't even think you need a skill-based system. And so I actually prefer something that doesn't have skills or levels. Like, that is absolutely where I lie. Now, even like Necromunda, man, makes an amazing. Have you played? You haven't, because you don't do a lot of the wargaming stuff. It's a sci-fi thing out of the Warhammer universe where it's gang warfare, and it's made to be just tabletop, but it has a campaign structure that you can take and throw on top of it. You throw the AD&D loops, and you can actually play. I personally think you can play this stuff with any freaking war games or like miniature game that you want to play it with, because all they are is combat resolution. It's just changing the combat resolution. So all you really have to do is write the procedures for the travel and the hex exploration and various things, and you have a game. So I love this idea. I guess it comes down to is like more men is hit dice. So the more money I get, the more men I can have, which is essentially leveling the dude up, because the whole party could be the figure, right? Like, it could be the level. Like, I don't see the man as different than the freaking group of men, because they're all just a bunch of hit dice anyways, right? They're all a bunch of wounds. And so I really like to see if the challenge of trying to just take him out there, seeing if the dude can build up and have people follow him, and then see if they can get the job done for the local lord or kill the monster, basically, dude. And it's very board gamey, to be really honest. Like, I see solo RPGs as more of a board game like BX than anything else, you know, is really kind of where I lie with it.
Right. Whereas, you know, I'm being a role player coming at it from the role playing angle, I see sort of the same thing. There's a lot of good role playing that happens in a solo session, because you can,
for sure.
Only there's so many you can get right into your role. Like, you know, if you're playing D&D and you want to solo a thief, that's the perfect time rather than taking up the DM's time at the table. You know, you're wandering off by yourself, sneaking, pickpocketing. It's a valid solo experience.
I did a run through for Alchemic Raker's Diplomacy by X. Someone was trying to assassinate someone, and I got to solo play that whole freaking thing. So I put together a little system of assassination using the assassination tables and the thief tables, and we ran freaking like an assassination attempt on people with a resolution system. And that's one of the reasons why I will have to say, first edition, those, at least the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual, is like the solo gamer's probably Bible. Like, it really should be. Understanding first edition will do a hell of a lot for your solo game, and it has the procedures to do it.
I really feel like it's definitely one of those things. Historically, everybody should play it, you know, because it is, especially hearing you guys talk about it, it's apparent in retrospect how complete it really is. I played in a first edition session recently, and one of the things that we used that I liked that I didn't anticipate liking was the all of the different weapons versus armor types bonuses and penalties. That weapons versus specific armor types actually really added something to the game.
Yep. No, it's like with my kid, like we have a local table game that it's 12 players at this point when we run a session, and their age is like 10 to freaking 50 something, you know. But downtime, like the boy, like the 9-year-old, will come in and say, look, I want to find an assassination contract, right? And we'll just play it. We'll play a session literally with just a few of the procedures out of the book. It's rules as written, but it's its own game. Like, it is literally its own little game, right? That's what's so great about that DMG, is that it has those like literally procedures. You can really get a lot done with that game, with that book.
Yeah, I know Mr. Mollison has said similar, that there's all these subsystems are like a bunch of mini games hidden within it.
Yeah, Mollison's solo stuff is freaking phenomenal. It's hard to call it solo when you have that much input from your buddies, but those are great videos, man. And
yeah,
I will
it's very entertaining. It's great. I will often throw it on just to have it in the background while I'm doing my own solo sessions.
And he'll take advice, man. When he gets something wrong or there's a better idea, like he'll point it out and he'll fix it. It's and I was having this conversation about actual plays and how I think actual plays, for the most part, are a really big disservice to our hobby because of how they present certain things. But what is not is solo plays. Solo plays tend to actually be educational if you pay attention to them, and so there is a huge difference.
It's strange. I'm very much that way myself. I don't care for actual plays over much when it's a group, but I really enjoy solo actual plays. So that's why, you know, I'm watching your channel and Scudder for Mike, Random Encounter Show. You know, there's, and guys, so many I'm forgetting off the top of my head. I know there's a lot of great stuff. And
it might be his hands, though. It might be John's hands. That could have been what drew me to it in the first place, but. Man, no, that guy's stuff is good enough to like fire up Twitter again and go over to X and hunt down the people he talks about called the bros, you know?
Yeah.
He might be a recruiter. I'm not sure.
He's their marketing division. He's
the
bro marketing. He's the face of the bros, and he's the gateway bro.
For sure. What's this train derailment, man?
What train derailment?
The last comment there from a couple of adventurers.
The train.
The train derailment. Oh yeah, that was me, dude. Yeah. I actually, it was fun, dude. So this solo game, like when Alchemic Raker's like, dude, I need this turned around today. I was like, okay, I'm gonna put away what I have to do tonight, and I'm gonna go do that. And like designing the assassination attempt, like I set it up so there were 2 points of assassination. One was on, this is all based on history. Like this is an actual trip that one of the princes or king of England took over to Ireland back in like, I forget what years, like 1919 or 1918. Okay. And the French had an opportunity to cause a derailment, make it look like an accident. as this guy was, as the guys go and his wife are going to whatever town it was, they actually were able to do that. But I had it set up that if they got there, there was another attempt with some people that had like were actual assassins that had firearms and things like that were going to try. But I just modified everything by level using the direct tables out of the 1EDMG and rolled it all like it was how I roll it at the table. And it ended up being a derailment, and they ended up killing the king that way, I think it was. Or it was a bishop. It was king. Okay. Yeah, no, that was a blast, dude. Like that kind of thing. That's why playing on X is fun and knowing people on X is fun, because these little opportunities to like just sit down and do something yourself, they pop up. And it is a lot of fun to design a little thing like that and play a little scenario by yourself like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so great. And I remember seeing tweets that you were the one doing that at the time, and I forgot that was you.
Yeah.
That was you. That was
me. I forgot about that. That was fun. Yeah, that was a good time.
And Diplomacy by X has been awesome to be involved with.
Are you playing that?
Yeah. I am so thoroughly getting my butt kicked. It's
great. Are you? Man. How many turns are you guys in? What year are you guys at?
We're in 1908. I think we might have just transitioned to 1909. So we've had a good solid 8-9 turns. Well, double that because there's 2 turns in a year. But yeah, it's I started out. I'm playing Germany, and I started out doing okay. Got myself up to like 4 or 5 territories, and then I made the wrong move and attacked Russia when I shouldn't have, and then everything. So I've been running from one space to another with some other players backing me up and supporting me to make sure I can stay in the game. And I just keep talking mad shit. Kaiser Willie will not give up.
No, that's it. Just start memeing it. Win by memeing. Win by memeing.
Yes.
Every Stein player every person that plays a Stein or a game like that should watch Inception and understand the movie Inception. Because it only takes little mentions here and there to get people to freaking do things. And that's one of the beautiful things about playing games like that. Even like dinner games like Dead of Winter or something like that, where it's kind of a Stein in a box. Those things are a lot of fun when you start messing around with psychology and playing like that. That's a lot of fun, man.
Well, and that's one of the aspects that comes in with the PvP that we were talking about is you have to be acting at odds. So most of my PvP stuff, I spent many years running vampire LARPs in the early 2000s.
Right on.
And it's very, very similar to Steining in the sense that I started out like coming up with normal stuff. We have a story or a plot and NPCs and there's things going on and stuff for players to do. But very quickly it fell by the wayside because once you get up to 15, 20, 25 or more players, each one of those is a character with their own goals, aspirations, plans, secrets, everything. And what happens and arises organically between them is better and more intricate than anything I could come up with myself.
Well, that's what a Stein is. I mean, I'm sorry. If you have experience with LARP, then you understand that's exactly what a freaking Bronstein is. It's a LARP. And there's nothing wrong with that. So did you meet your wife at a vampire LARP too, like my buddy?
Yes.
Dude, you're the second person to know.
We didn't meet at a LARP. She started gaming because of me. But I got into when I first moved to Cleveland back in like 98 or whenever it was, I found a LARP, joined it. Then one of the guys from the LARP said, "Hey, there's this person I want you to meet." And he took me over to the gas station where she was working and I met my wife.
Nice.
And there's just been nobody else ever since.
No, that's great because I know another dude on X that he used to run LARPs, vampire LARPs. He used to organize LARPs there. And that's where he met his wife too, dude. And they're going strong. That's pretty funny, man. That's my new thing is that vampire LARPs build marriages. Like that's what I have seen now. So I believe it.
That's the way it is. And you know what we did is she started playing in the LARP shortly afterwards. She was a gamer herself before we ever met. So that was like I fell in love all over again right in that moment. And then once we moved in together, we started hosting the game, and so we got this. We're in a duplex, little 2-bedroom apartment, and at our peak times, we had 70 players showing up at our game. So if you can imagine 70 people crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment, it's
amazing.
The front balcony, we're up in the attic, we're in the basement, we're in the backyard, we're in the front yard. It was all over the place, man.
I don't know if we can call it a parlor LARP, but it's like a small enough space to be a parlor LARP, but that's a lot of freaking people, dude.
Yeah, well, we were the biggest independent game in town at the time. Up there's my baby. There's my wife, Velma.
I
love you, baby.
Right on, dude. Right on.
And there's so much, like, hearing all the stuff about the Steins, man. I said, oh God, I know all this stuff.
Yeah.
The LARPs, they run on 1-to-1 time, you leave everybody alone. Like, the DM should be hands off. You really embrace the role of referee.
Yep.
And the way I got my rocks off doing that is I played NPCs a lot. So I'd have like a default, like, a ghoul or something like that, or a butler or whatever was going on. But like I was saying, I started out thinking I got to come up with a plot or a story and give the players something to do. And no, actually just get out of the way. The players will do their own thing, man.
Yeah. Stuff
will happen.
No, absolutely. The same thing happens online with the Steins, man. Like, the good ones are hands off. And I still think probably Bros or Diceless was my favorite one so far that Crom put together. The Diceless game was amazing. And when he gets less busy, the stuff he's been writing for Diceless is freaking phenomenal. And I truly think that when we're playing a Stein like that the best resolution system is going to be a Diceless resolution system.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is?
Because I like the strategic and tactical piece of it, and I don't want to play around with a die roll that might just break that. I don't care about the simulation of a random freaking factor on the battlefield. Like, if I've moved my pieces or I've done my plays that, and I put myself in a position where I know that I have the advantage and I'm going on the attack or doing something there or debating with somebody, I want it to be based on how I've kind of watched them play, what I think their stats might be, and that's where I want it, rather than with a die roll. Now, that's not to say that there's not dice in the game with it when it comes to gossip and rumors and things like that the ref might be using. But I really do like the idea of a controlled system that eliminates a lot of that random number generation.
Right. And any sort of randomness. Well, I think I've heard it said, randomness favors the underdog, right? So whoever is weaker in a given situation, the randomness gives them a chance. Whereas I'm a veteran of Amber myself, so I know that it's a straight comparison. If one guy's number is bigger, he wins, period. End of story. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. And we definitely, with that, we figured out some stuff, like the trick. We had these tricks in that game, and that economy was bad. It did allow, like, people to do some certain things, and when they died and respawned, they could do builds that were just, it was complete metagaming, and I'm guilty of it with some people in that, because it is, but there's ways to actually deal with that. And I think Crom has found some solutions to that economy right there that will kind of level it out. And there's been some mass combat work with it. And so when dude has time, I'm really ready to play in one of his again.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. And I really feel like not having the dice, pardon me, but not having the dice to fall back on really does create a strategic frame of mind that you're adopting. Now, in a case like that, though, you mentioned that there was some metagame issues in the sense that if somebody died, they would come back and roll up a character that was much more of an optimized build. There's some min-maxing go on. How did you address that? What do you think that's rooted in?
That is not addressed in that game. That will be addressed in the next one, I believe. Because one thing, I honestly think that those games, like, I don't think coming back is the right answer. I don't think playing anymore. I think if you're eliminated, you're eliminated and you're out, like I was the first person killed in a Boot Hill game over that was kind of like it was play by post, but was 1-to-1 time over at Living Earth, and it was a great game. I pissed a lot of people off because I was memeing in a guy named Babe Lincoln, who was the president's freaking brother, and nobody believed me. But I was the first person to die, but they're rightfully so. Like, I was out of the game and not back in the game. Like, I don't really think when you're playing in that type of situation, there should be another character coming in. Like, that's just how I feel, though. I'm not interested in going in there and getting a job and building an economy and farm simulating the game. I'm interested in going in there, seeing if I can push limits and see how long I can survive. Is kind of what I'm interested in, you know?
Yeah. So you're really driven by you like the challenge, the strategic challenge, the tactical confrontation, and that's what you're going to strive for in the game.
Right. And I think the Diceless system actually really allows for that, because there's ways to determine what people are capable of. And there's ways for people to really hide it. The worst thing that I had going on in that game was there was a true neutral dude that I could not crack, and I could not get him to do anything. I could not break his character, man. He was phenomenal, but I hated it so much.
I'm taking notes over here.
Right? Do not play a true neutral around me, please.
Got it. Always play true neutral around you.
Yeah, exactly.
The red button pusher. We got to push the red button.
That's right. Actually, there was a session the other night. It was a 1E session. We were all playing Gnolls. The whole party was Gnolls with one human. And it was like we were on a Death Star. There was lightsabers, androids, and all of this, right? And we got into 2 rooms. And the first thing my character did every single time was freaking push the buttons. And I'm a button pusher for sure.
As I've seen on your X interactions, many pushing buttons going on there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you restrain yourself? How do you restrain yourself from that metagaming urge, that build? Because there is a degree that I understand the desire to win, but how far are you willing to go to secure that win?
No, there was some disagreement in the Stein, like a pregame, like play by post. And like my thing is, if there's a disagreement, like I went to the ref, I'm like, hey, should I just be dead before this game starts? I think this is wrong, and I think I'm right. But if it is the way the game will play better, like I'll just be dead and I won't play. I don't care. It's got to be fair, man. You know. And so I think that that's the spirit of the game is trying to do it within the limits. Like the limits make the creativity, in my opinion. It's like how I always used to argue before I got blocked by Rob Kuntz. I'd argue with him that his like freebie freaking like everything goes like mentality just ruins the creativity of the game. I think that the physical limits of the game actually like make more creativity possible. That's just my outlook on it.
Yes, a lot more creativity happens when you have constraints, because you really think about what you can do within those constraints. So, you know, if you've got 10 men at arms, what are you going to do with that? You know, that's it. You can't get more. If they die, they're gone. What are you going to do, man? Think about applying your resources. Smart,
yes.
Preserve.
And it's the same concept. What we have found is that you get these one-off steins, and they're a lot of fun. But even in like a war game situation like Tony Bath, we're playing a Tony Bath style game that Captain Hook's running right now. If you do not have a campaign to back up the combat or the battle, decisions are not the same as if there's a resource management in the campaign, right? Because people make a lot riskier decisions when there's no future impact in that battle. So you can't get a good figure-based war game without a campaign on it, because you will get people like, I absolutely can, I know how to use chainmail and use certain figures to make your freaking army run away, right? I can beat your army by doing certain things, but it's risky and it might have an impact on the later campaign. Right. So in a later campaign, those figures might not even be on the table, because I'm done if those figures are on the table. But if we're just playing a point-based game and it's a match, then you get into what Warhammer tournaments are, which is like, I'm going to chase the meta, and I'm going to do all these movement shenanigans, and I'm going to beat you because I don't have any future domain to think about. And that's why I think RPGs and like 1E and like old school D&D really does a good job of making like the war game piece contained and better, is because there is a future repercussion if you make certain decisions. So it makes that battle a better play for people.
I really agree with that. And it forces people to play with a mind towards, well, what's the future going to be? I may win this battle, but if my army is still, if I take hideous casualties during this battle, what's going to happen next week? What I got to move on to this town and take that town, or whatever your next goal is.
Right.
It really does enhance. Well, and that changes it from a tactical situation into a strategic one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the strategic game, I think, is always a lot more fun. And that's why things like you're talking about with like the one you ran and the strategic aspect of the game there, I think those, figuring out how to run those like for 3 weeks without overload is a really good thing to do for everybody, because those can be extremely fun games.
Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, in retrospect now, looking back on it, it was a ton of fun. I mean, it's something I'm so glad I did. And like I said, though, at the end of it, I was mentally exhausted.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I think, didn't one of the bros run a Stein that was like a month straight, and he had like 15 players or something like that?
I know that, I mean, Bros or Diceless was a month. And it was definitely like 15 something players. And he did a great job. His system was great. I mean, it was really like, give me your orders. It was a weekly order. Give me your orders. I'm going to adjudicate them. And he coined the term Goss, which kind of has like a lot of similarities in different like solo aspects where you're rolling for rumors and things like this. But his was pretty simple and it worked extremely well. Like, it's a range of like, nothing's heard by someone, or like all the truth is known about something, or they get a fake rumor instead of what actually happened. So like when I'm going out trying to assassinate somebody, I did have assassins go after someone, and the Goss roll was not my friend, and so they knew it was me that sent the assassin on it, right? And that's just a simple D6 mechanism or mechanic that really took away so much cognitive load from dude. And that is why I think like tweaking something like Mighty Empires and finding where the balance is works, because there's all these abstract systems that just take away a lot of the cognitive load of the refs, so they can actually focus on the game. And that's why they do better when it's self-refereed and combat can be DM-less in these Steins, because the ref isn't having to focus on these freaking combats. So I can actually get a hold of the ref in the Stein when there's 20 people, so.
War God, glad to have you here, man. Thanks for coming by. So now you brought it up earlier, and I want to talk about Men Are the Monsters.
Yeah.
What are you working on? Can you go back to the basic beginning of it and tell us what that is?
I started it because I was literally doing like tile-based dungeon crawls with Chainmail, because the movement system in Chainmail directly built the dungeon turn system. Like, so the 5 movement rounds became the 5 turns and then a rest in the dungeon, like it ports directly over. So I've been playing a lot of like literally just figure-based dungeon crawls and hex crawls. And then I think I watched like, or I was playing The Witcher, or I was watching The Witcher, or reading The Witcher TTRPG book, and I like the concept of levelless. And so what this game's concept is that everyone's a normal man, and like there are you can purchase things that might help you fight a wraith or a werewolf, but your target number on 2d6 is going to be 12. And then there's different levels of like, basically it builds quests. You go out and find the ingredients to build a bomb, or you go out and find the ingredients to build a potion, and then that lowers the target number down a little bit more. And if you stack that, like a 50-point sorcerer can come in, use a spell like Wraith Cage on a Wraith, and you've got a potion or blade oil on your blade, and it's a silver blade or an iron blade in that case, then your target number might be down around 8 or 6 or something like that, or 7, depending on like what you've done there and what you are. And so essentially fighting the monsters in that game, if you haven't prepared for it, you're going to die. Like, there's no question. Like, you will not be able to hit them. You will not win. Now that's coupled with a system that's the mass combat system, and there's a mercenary job system and a citizen job system. So it's essentially jump on the hex board and get to a town and find a way to make some money so that you can build your force up a little bit more. You start with basically 50 plus D, 50 points, and then we play it with like 3 or 4 people around here, and people have their point count, and they can pool together points to buy stronger figures like a sorcerer or something like that from Chainmail. Or if you're doing it solo, you're just getting what you can, going out and trying to build it up. And it's essentially a hex crawl with Chainmail that really is geared on getting out and finding information about the monster you're fighting. Like, so you're rolling a die in a town and triggering a freaking encounter with a person that has some information, and then going out and being able to do a ritual to summon this thing at the right time and then fight it. If you fail, you summon it at the wrong time, it's a much harder fight type of thing. But it is figure based, right? So it is, I do play it with like tiles and figures. And then the boss fights literally are like, the AI is set up to where you're playing a game of a miniature war game once you're fighting that boss. It's not just like, oh, like one figure of the monster is a pain in the ass and it's a boss fight. And so you're hoping you don't run into that stuff unprepared, basically. It's a lot of fun, man. I really enjoy it.
Nice. Do you have aspirations of writing it up and putting it out in the world somewhere?
There's some people that are playing it that I know on X that have played that and played some of the Necromunda stuff. I'll share whatever I have. I don't know if it'll ever finish, but if it was ever published as something, it would more be published as like something like Warhammer Quest than an RPG, dude, because it's definitely leans towards like figure gaming and things rather than RPG.
Right. So it's definitely, but it still sounds like an interesting experience, and it sounds like a good vehicle for familiarizing yourself with Chainmail and the inner workings of it.
For sure. I do think that the stuff that Alchemic Raker put together with the Old Lords makes it a little bit easier to understand. So I told him I was going to steal his tables and credit him with it, because his text and the way he wrote the tables, I think, is a little easier to understand than Chainmail.
Yes, I found it much easier to understand than Chainmail, like we were talking about earlier. The original book, I'm kind of like, wait, what? That's definitely some high Gygaxi in there.
Oh, for sure. I liked Moritz's question there about, do you world build with your solo adventures, historic in-game stories, for example, for your kids or groups? Absolutely. Like, there's a campaign that I run with the kids that is all built off of the outdoor survival board and OD&D, because it's really easy to run. Like, there's Mr. Josh Bear has the OD&D ref tools, which does all the encounters, all the castles. It does everything that you need to roll in the browser. And then Dungeon Scrawl does a really good job of letting you do actually fight combat in a dungeon design software. And then Hex Friend is what I use, and that will allow you to build the hex map out really easily. So I absolutely do my sub hexes and like dungeons in a solo format before I play them with the kid. That's absolutely my prep, is solo.
Yeah, I'm definitely in that camp of I actually use solo gaming for world building all the time. Like a lot of characters I'll do a couple sessions with, and then I put that character aside and I'll use them as an NPC later, or testing out a location. If you ever if you're gonna run a game, if you really want to get inside the skin of your villain, your big bad evil guy, sit down and play a solo session of that character. Yep. Like, if you're going to run Curse of Strahd, sit down and do a solo session as Strahd. What's a night in the life of Strahd look like? What does he get up to? What does he do? What is he really like? It also helps. I've found that it helps me when the encounter actually happens, because I'm more familiar with the patterns and tactics of the character, the monster.
100%. And there's a solo. I found the channel. I did a solo session with Sir Antanius, and it was Antanius from X. Sat there, and I was just playing by myself, and he was the only dude in the chat. And I based the character that I was rolling up when he came in on him. And that character I soloed for probably 4 months, and he died in a dungeon. And that became a session, was them trying to find where he was and find his sword, because he had found a magic sword. So Dude from X became part of the session in the family game. And it just is a great way to world build. Like, I also like to do a lot of stuff where I have the armies moving around. Like my encounters stay alive. So if I roll an OD&D encounter, 1E encounter of like 30 nomad or 150 nomads, no matter what happens to that nomad has a 1 in 2 chance each campaign turn to actually move somewhere else and be doing something else. If they hit certain things, then that just builds the world, right? That builds the campaign. And so I love sitting down into the campaign and just playing the campaign that is being run with people. It's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Yeah. And that you use it as an opportunity to sort of spawn something once it's on the board. Yep. You then track it and see what else develops from that. Like,
yes. And dice are amazing, man. I once had some, I think, I don't know what kind of giants they were, but they spawned, and random movement over 2 turns had them hit a village and then a castle. And so that spawned into like against the giants, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like there, it'll instantly trigger you. It's like, okay, let's drop in this module right here in the campaign. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of fun. I find it phenomenal and amazing how it will actually build something up. Right.
Yeah. And again, that's another one of the things, the aspects of solo playing I like, is so many times when you have no idea what's going to happen, and the story that emerges is so much cooler than what I would have come up with if I sat down to write a story.
For sure,
very different. To
5 Leagues is a great game, man, but there are things that I didn't like about it, and but that system for solo play, the way the dice work with roll, basically, have you played it?
I have not.
So the initiative system is when you have a speed for a character. It's like a 1 or a 2 or a 3. You can level it up. You roll a die for each figure that you have on the table, and if it's that number or lower, that one goes before the opponent or the monsters go. And then if every monster goes, and then the ones that failed their initiative check basically get to go. So it really does this like interesting initiative that turns into something interesting. I like that system.
Mothership's initiative works almost exactly the same.
Okay.
A speed test, and if you succeed on the speed test, those people go before the monster, then the monster goes, and then everyone who failed the speed test goes.
Yep.
It's a pretty neat system. I like how it pans out.
No, and if I'm not playing simultaneous stuff, like doing orders and like actually dropping off and doing orders and side base, I prefer a system like that, or like just modifying the D&D system to be like a dexterity roll, like an ability check, and whoever passes can go before the enemy, and then the ones that don't go after. It makes it really simple. But yeah, I'm also a fan of anything simple for solo, Yeah, the quest mechanics, it's set up like Warhammer Quest. It has an event roll in the campaign system. So you do an event roll, then you get to choose 2 actions in the campaign turn, and then you choose like how you're going to adventure, and then you go out and do that adventure. And so that book for OD&D, or like running Chainmail with that book, I've done it many times, is just using 5 Leagues to run the campaign for like Chainmail figures. It's extremely solid. It will open up a lot of, if you're a designer, if you really want to learn how like these game loops work for like campaign turns, and you want something that works on an ongoing monthly basis like that, this is a solid process inside of 5 Leagues for sure.
That's really cool.
I got to pop over. I got some work I got to do tonight, man. I'm sorry to bounce on you, but I do have to get going. I got about 10 minutes. Anything else we want to cover, dude? Or
yeah, the last thing I was going to ask, the thought that popped into my thanks off grid. Glad to have you, my brother. And we had touched on something earlier, I think even before the stream started, where you were talking about the difference between the 2 players. There's the tactical want to win kind of players, the strategic players, versus the story gamers or role players. And there was some conflict, some friction between those two types of players in your experience?
Yeah, there always is. I mean, I think it's just a matter of looking for the narrative to come out when you're playing with other people, or looking for the. I've talked a lot about procedure. I want to see the end result. I'm rushing to see what the end result is, and I do think that there's two groups of people that end up playing together, especially in a club situation, where this is something that needs to be handled a little bit. And I think there's ways to do it. And like I said, man, I think that if the stream on Wednesday goes well, some of that stuff can come out, and there can be some really solid solution to that stuff that comes out. I think it could be a very solid stream, actually. But it is one of those things where there's a different desire and a different outcome desired by people, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, though, there's what is the source of the friction? Are the story gamers upset that they keep getting their asses kicked? Or
no, I don't think the story gamers keep getting their asses kicked. I just think that there's miscommunication that arises, and ways someone would handle a situation that are different to initiate it. And I really don't want to like drop it right here, but I have some solutions that I want to say, especially if one of the other players get in there. I really want to kind of debate it with him and see what he thinks on Wednesday, if I can make it. But I do think there's procedural based solutions that will work, that if those are implemented in the games, that it will stop a lot of that from happening.
Right. Okay, that's cool. It touched a chord with me because, again, leaning back on my LARP experience years back, there was definitely a tension between those two types of players. Some players, and they were more on the outs, socially speaking. The LARPing really wanted to encourage the story gamers and role players more,
for sure,
power gamers. But in the fullness of time, I've come to feel like, well, that's just real life. That's verisimilitude. There's, in life, you're going to run into people where they're not interested in your story or what's going on in your life. You are an objective to them, right? And I think there is something important about having those players in the mix and even forcing them to work one another. I've also seen the opposite one, where the more tactically minded power gamers, if you will, get annoyed and frustrated with suboptimal decisions and builds and stuff like that. What do you have any experience in that field?
Yeah, I think that playing public games and with people that I just don't consider as solid of players as the people in the bros and in the living earth, when they tried to do the narrative thing, I wanted to choke them. It killed time at the table. It killed time at the screen, and it just slowed things down. The better someone gets at all of it and the better gamer they become, the less of an issue it is. But it's still one of those things where I will always want to speed it up and finish the situation rather than stay in it. That's just me, though.
All right. Well, good. Well, let's wrap this up here. I know time is coming close for you. I want to take another opportunity to plug the Dundermoose stream on Wednesday night, where RDubs and many other players in which Stein was it that
Space Stein, and Brigadine killed it. Vince killed it. Like, there was some amazing play. I got some votes for the best damn voices that were made, but it was a solid Stein. Josh did a really good job running that. I think he did a phenomenal job running that.
Awesome. And thanks for coming, Moritz. Glad to have you here. Again, thanks for stopping by, everybody. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to be coming back next Monday. I have John with Jack scheduled with Alchemic Raker. We're going to be discussing Hell March and some Diplomacy by X. So be sure to come on back and join us next week. And we're going to have a special non-Monday stream here in the next week or two, so I can have a special guest on, someone who I have a lot of respect for, and that'll be Scudder for Mike.
Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, great conversation. I think this is the first time we've actually gotten to talk together, and it was so worth it, man. I appreciate you making time for me.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. It's the next one is going to be good. Alchemic Raker is going to be good, man. That's a good one.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. RDubs, you the man. Keep
Take
being
care, brother.